Hey guys, tonight we take a sleepy stroll back to the heart of ancient Rome. Not the romanticized toga-flapping version you see in movies, but the gritty, smoky, clanging reality of a city built to last longer than the empire that ruled it. You're walking down a cobbled street. The night air smells faintly of oil lamps and roasted chestnuts. Every step you take echoes off walls that have stood for over 2,000 years. Some of them are crumbling, yes, but many still hold strong, shoulder to shoulder with modern buildings, quietly defying time. Their secret? Concrete. But not the kind you've seen poured on your street corner. This stuff is weirdly alive, tougher, smarter, almost magical. And if you were a Roman engineer, you probably couldn't even tell us why. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a construction site in ancient Rome. It's noisy, dusty, and some poor guy is hauling a bucket of volcanic ash up a rickety scaffold. You watch as he dumps it into a wooden mixing vat where lime and water are already swirling. No hard hats, no high-vis vests, just sandals and sunburn. And yet what they're making here, opus cementitium Roman concrete, is about to hold up temples, harbors, aqueducts, and amphitheaters for millennia. Literally millennia. The Romans didn't invent concrete. That credit goes way back to the Greeks and even the Egyptians. But the Romans perfected it. And then, like a recipe lost in Grandma's handwritten cookbook, the secret vanished for over 1,000 years after the empire fell. Modern concrete crumbles in mere decades. But Roman concrete? Still standing. That's like baking a cookie that gets better over centuries. So what made their concrete different? You look down at the bucket again. The answer is volcanic ash. Specifically, a type called pozzolana, harvested from areas around Mount Vesuvius. When mixed with lime and seawater, it formed a chemical reaction that gave the concrete remarkable durability. It didn't just set, it got stronger over time, like wine. Or your suspicion of hotel mattress cleanliness. But it wasn't just about the ingredients. The Romans had a relaxed approach to mixing. Unlike modern concrete, which is obsessively blended to be smooth and uniform, Roman builders were kinda lazy about it. Their concrete was chunky, with big aggregates of rock and ash just jammed in there. Sloppy? Maybe. But in that sloppiness was genius. Because those big chunks actually helped crack energy dissipate and, spoiler alert for Section 2, they set the stage for something we now call self-healing. Now picture the concrete at the harbor in Cosa, a Roman port that's been battered by waves since before Julius Caesar knew what a knife was. You'd think centuries of salt water would reduce it to soup, but nope, still intact. When scientists took core samples from these ancient maritime structures, they discovered the Roman mix had actually reacted with seawater to form rare minerals, aluminum tobermarite being one of them, that reinforced the structure naturally. This is chemistry that today's engineers are still trying to mimic. And here's the kicker. Roman builders didn't know the science. They didn't have electron microscopes. They just knew what worked. Put in the pozzolana, they said. Trust the ash. Sometimes genius is just consistent trial and error, and not dying in the process. But let's not romanticize too much. The process still had its quirks. One fringe theory out there suggests that certain batches of Roman concrete lasted too long, like longer than the buildings they were meant to support, which made renovations awkward. Imagine trying to remodel your kitchen. and the walls refuse to come down because the concrete is literally stronger now than when it was poured. And the streets you walk on in the Roman Forum? Yeah, those are made with this same magic mud. Chariots and sandals wore grooves into them, but the underlying mix never gave up. Even the Colosseum, home of gladiators, mock sea battles, and the occasional overly dramatic emperor tantrum, is largely held together with this same material. Historians still argue whether the Romans knew it would last this long, or if they just got incredibly lucky. Either way, your local freeway is jealous. Let's also talk quirks. Did you know some Roman engineers preferred to build with bricks around concrete cores, not for strength, but for aesthetics? The concrete was considered ugly by the fancier patricians, even if it could outlive their great-great-great-grandkids. It's like buying a titanium phone and then wrapping it in a pink glittery case with cat ears. Functional, but very on-brand. Now here's a fact that might make your eyes widen even more than a Roman senator's tunic hem on a windy day. Roman concrete wasn't just made to survive, it was made to adapt. The combination of materials meant it could handle stress, temperature swings, and water exposure in ways modern concrete just doesn't. Which is wild when you remember they mixed it by hand, with zero computer simulations and a lot of trial by collapse. So, why don't we use it now? Great question. Modern concrete is cheaper and sets faster. It's optimized for a world that values speed over longevity. We don't wait decades for strength to bloom. We need skyscrapers up yesterday. Roman concrete, bless its volcanic heart, takes its sweet time to mature. It's like sourdough, slow, crusty, and worth the wait if you can afford it. Before we move forward, take a mental snapshot of what you're seeing. Ancient hands slapping ash into wet lime, seawater splashing into troughs, scaffolding creaking under the Mediterranean sun. And somewhere nearby, maybe a bored teenager is carving a rude joke into a wall that's still gonna be standing in 2025 while your patio crumbles. Now carry that image with you as we dive into the second part. Because what happens after the concrete sets might be the real miracle. You're back on that Roman construction site. The concrete's been poured. It's dried in the sun. And now it just waits. You'd think that would be the end of the story. But no. The real magic starts after the bricks are laid and the scaffolds come down. This concrete isn't just a strong, silent type. It's got tricks up its sleeve. Tricks that modern engineers didn't fully understand until very recently. One of those tricks? Self-healing. Yep, like a superhero with masonry-based powers. When Roman concrete cracks, and it does, because everything cracks eventually, those cracks don't just sit there like little time bombs. Instead, water seeps in and reacts with leftover bits of volcanic ash and lime, forming new crystals that fill the gaps. It's like the wall gets a paper cut, takes a deep breath, and quietly knits itself back together. Compare that to modern concrete, which tends to act like a drama queen. A crack appears, water rushes in, steel reinforcements rust, and before you know it, your parking garage is flaking like a bad sunburn. Roman concrete, on the other hand, just shrugs and keeps going. Crack? What crack? Scientists were baffled by this for years. The stuff didn't make sense. Samples taken from Roman harbor structures were still chemically active, still transforming, even after nearly 2,000 years underwater. That's like finding a loaf of bread in your basement that's not only still fresh, but somehow evolving into sourdough in real time. In 2023, researchers finally caught a break. They zoomed in, way in, with high-powered microscopes and found something unexpected. Little white clumps called lime clasts. These weren't fully dissolved in the mix, which modern engineers would consider a mistake. But to the Romans, it was intentional. These clasts became micro-reactors, kicking off healing processes whenever moisture entered the cracks. A flaw? No. More like a built-in repair kit. And here's the kicker. Historians still argue whether the Romans knew about this self-healing property, or if it was just one of those gloriously lucky accidents. Maybe they noticed that some structures held up better than others and traced it back to a certain ash or a particular mixing style. Or maybe they were just following the old, "if it ain't collapsing, don't fix it" mantra. Think about the Pantheon. That massive concrete dome, still the largest unreinforced one in the world, has stared down earthquakes, empires, and endless pigeons for nearly 2 millennia. No steel supports, just Roman concrete layered with intelligence and maybe a bit of ancient swagger. You look up at it, and it doesn't just survive, it inspires. That's more than engineering. That's art. Now, let's get weird. You ever hear of the Roman concrete that foamed? Some researchers believe that in certain conditions, heat from volcanic reactions actually caused parts of the mix to expand slightly, giving the concrete more breathability. That's right, breathing walls. Not like a living being, exactly, but more like your grandma's sourdough starter. Slightly funky, incredibly resilient, and always just a little bit alive. Also, fun fact, some Roman buildings were embedded with bits of crushed pottery, called cocciopesto. It helped waterproof baths and cisterns, but also gave the mix a little extra grit. That's right. Your average Roman bathhouse may have been held together by recycled dinner plates. Reduce, reuse, resist decay for 2,000 years. Of course, even the best Roman concrete wasn't immortal. Some buildings fell, some were cannibalized for their materials, and a few collapsed under poor design or natural disasters. But the fact that any of it remains is astonishing. Not because time is gentle, it isn't, but because the Romans had the audacity to think long-term in a world where most things were made to last a season, maybe a year. We don't really build like that anymore, do we? Our modern cities prioritize efficiency, speed, and profit. Concrete today is optimized to be quick, cheap, and easy to pour. It's like the fast food of construction. Fills you up fast, but don't expect it to age well. Roman concrete was slow cooked. It marinated. It aged like an old cheese in a volcanic cave. Still, there's hope. Thanks to studies of Roman concrete, new research labs are now exploring ways to resurrect the recipe. Scientists at MIT and other universities are experimenting with lime clasts, volcanic ash, and slow-set mixes that could eventually change the way we build everything, from bridges to seawalls. The future of concrete might actually lie in the past. And wouldn't that be something? Imagine living in a world where buildings get stronger with age, not weaker. Where cracks heal themselves. Where architecture behaves more like an ecosystem, resilient, responsive, even wise. You glance down once more at those ancient Roman roads, the ones you trudged over at the beginning of tonight's journey. They're still there, holding steady under centuries of feet, hooves, wheels, and now the occasional camera-happy tourist. And underneath them, deep in their molecular structure, ancient minerals are still quietly growing, still reinforcing, still whispering, "Not today," entropy. So next time you see a crumbling parking structure or a pothole the size of a baby elephant, think about this. Somewhere under an Italian moon, a Roman wall is silently healing itself. No fanfare, no crew, no fuss. Just a little volcanic ash, a lot of patience, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of old-world magic. Now, as we drift away from the ancient streets and return to your quiet room, let's let those images soften, in the gentle glow of sleep. Picture the warm dusk settling over Rome, the last rays of sunlight glinting off mossy stones and dusty walls. Feel the cool air wrap around your shoulders as you step away from the clamor of hammers and ash clouds back into the peaceful hush of night. The secrets of Roman concrete don't need to be fully solved right now. You don't need to memorize the minerals or rehearse the chemistry. Just hold on to the idea that some things, beautiful things, enduring things, are made slowly, patiently, with a quiet wisdom that speaks not in years, but in centuries. Let your mind settle on the thought of a harbor still standing against the waves, a dome still holding up the stars, and a city that whispers through stone. We were here. We endured. As your breathing slows, imagine the ash settling at the bottom of the mix, calm and weightless. The world narrows to the sound of the fan, the gentle rhythm of your own heartbeat, and the faint memory of footsteps echoing down an ancient road. Sleep well tonight. Let the strength of Roman concrete cradle your thoughts. Hold them still, and remind you that even cracks can lead to something stronger.